In this episode of the podcast, we sit down with Jovan Miller. We talk about his journey from growing up in Syracuse, becoming a two-time All-American and national champion at Syracuse University, how lacrosse has shaped his career, the growth and trajectory of the sport, and the lessons he's carried into education and leadership. One quick note before we get started, if you hear a little background noise, we apologize. The AC is working overtime today because of the brutal heat, so thanks for bearing with us. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
Is it out the code of conduct, stuff like that, and then simply just open it up into open conversation. And it was getting really good positive reviews.
Was it a solo podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, those are tough, man. Dude, kudos to you. Those are not easy.
Yeah, so how I got used to doing it, I would watch like a Colin Cowher who does it all the time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a lot of people are good at it. I'm like, that's tough.
I would only watch it for like 20 minutes, but I would just see he's got this freaking stack of papers. Right? So you get the stack of papers and then he go from a topic and then you'd see him. This is brought to you by ESPN.com.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. He like sprinkle in the sponsors and then he'd go to the next thing and then or whatever. So I kept watching him do it. And I was like, all right, so when I get on here and I'll be on there for some of my episodes were like over an hour.
Wow.
And like you can't have dead space in it. So
we can edit that out now.
Yeah, so like you list what the conversation is going to be about, and then you go to how it derived, like when it started.
So you'd be making like an outline for the
making
episode.
an outline.
You have to, because
like
you're not just going to go off the top of your head. That'd be so hard. You got to have some sort of structure.
Yeah, bro.
Because it's not a conversation. It's not just like, all right, we'll take it where it goes.
Yeah.
It's you. It's only you talking.
Bro. I had 20. I think it's still on Apple. Actually, yeah. It was like published and everything. And it's called Give It Context.
Okay.
And it was just like, again, it might be something like that, which was like a huge deal. So I kind of just simply brought up the 2016 thing and then how it started. Like the initial was Cap sitting down. And then it was the reasoning. Then it was the reaction. Then it was the include like other athletes getting involved.
Yeah.
Then I did an international take to it as well. So after he had done it, then it was like whole clubs in like other countries, like Germany, the whole soccer club was taking a knee together.
Yeah.
And then so it was like the fallout part. What's the reaction to it? Now does that make him more of a distraction as opposed to an entity, like a addition to a team? So it just started going down everything. But by the end, it was
kind of like in real time.
And so
that's interesting.
It was hard to do, but it was easier to do just because, like I say, it was harder to do because it was in real time. Because a lot of times, in order for you to have like a perspective, sometimes you got to give them a little time to like.
Well, hindsight's a little more 20/20.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say,
man.
you might look back at something as it was happening in real time and have an opinion, and then all of a sudden, like a year, 2 years, whatever, unfolds after. You might be like, it might change, but then people will see you say that, but like, oh, you was way off. It's like, dude, that was in real time.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot more different than just, exactly. 10 years later, 5 years later.
It was fun though.
Yeah.
My last episode I ever did, Mr. Sparks was on it.
Really? Terry Sparks?
Terry Sparks was on it.
He's a man.
My last one. It was at his house. So it was during COVID. Like it was right after COVID had like kind of, I was at his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to his house. His boys were
Terry Sparks, our middle school basketball coach.
School basketball coach. He's sitting at the table here. I got the microphone, whatever, set up, and then his boys are over on the couch, and I was watching the whole thing. It was like 50 minutes. It's pretty cool, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. I have a picture on my phone, and it's from your 8th grade year, my 7th grade year on his basketball team, Terry Sparks' basketball team. And it's the picture for the yearbook, and it's you, like me and Galway. And I'm looking there, I'm like, 3 Syracuse across All-Americans on the same middle school. We didn't lose a game, so
yeah.
We also had some other great players on the team, but it was just kind of funny. I'm like, wow, what a pick there.
Yeah, man.
But cool, yeah. Oh man, so we've been playing in this Shove Park League, dude. It's been killing me. It's so funny. It's like we keep getting older, but the players are still in college.
We're the unks, man.
Yeah,
we have now graduated to unk. We're the unk.
Lacrosse is a hard sport to age in.
Yeah,
it's always been my like concern of pro lacrosse. Is just like after college. I mean, obviously you got mid-20s. I think you're fine, but like I could still play basketball. I can still hang with young guys, not quite as well. I'm 30s, but like, I feel like I could still move. But just the physicality and the amount of running, especially on a full field.
I know.
It's like, it's hard to like, it's really a concentrated time where you can really be at your peak in lacrosse. That's my opinion.
I feel like I didn't realize how much I actually liked playing lacrosse until the first time I got baseball swung in my 30s. That was like, oh my God. I used to do this and like not even be fazed by it. And now I'm like, when we're playing, I'm like, don't pull a hamstring. Don't pull a groin. Don't go for that ball. Don't get back. Save your legs.
Mentally, you think you can do it. But when you have to have the discipline to be like, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. Like, don't go for the ball. Stay here. And you're more or less, you're thinking the game as opposed to just playing it. But I do feel like it makes us a better player now. I wish I probably would have thought that way when I was probably in my peak, just because it would have been a little easier to kind of navigate it. But yeah, man.
It is funny how you get smarter as a player because you coach, and it's like, once you're a coach, then you just look at the game differently. As a player, it's kind of just like, give me the ball. Not that we weren't students of the game, but you're truly a student of the game as a coach, because that's all you're doing is studying the team, studying what you need to be doing. And so then you end up playing as much as athletically, you're not maybe as in your peak as you were when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
You can find ways to still contribute and be competitive because it's all up here.
2 years ago, I thought about playing in the open up at Placid. I did. I did think about playing.
You're a bold man.
It's funny. And there was like that wisdom where it was like, I probably could do it. But I don't know how you felt about like after Placid last year, but it took me like 3 days to like fully feel somewhat better.
Well, it's annoying. We were like the third place champions. It's every year.
It's like
and part of it is like, you run into Drew Simonow, who's an unbelievable face-off guy, and it's just such a ridiculous advantage.
Yes.
So I was like, all right, kind of chalk it up to that, but like,
and you're up by 2 with 2 minutes left.
A couple of times it was like we had it, and we just last year we had 35 guys. And it was like guys who hadn't played the whole half are in the end of the game when there's 2 minutes left, the game on the line. I mean, I get it. You're throwing the ball while you hadn't played, but like, we had too many guys. And it was just frustrating. I was like, man, we have a good team every year and we're just third place every year.
I feel, honestly, like I'm kind of getting to this point where I'm like, I don't know how much longer I want to play up there. I love playing up there, but like, I kind of feel like if I win it again, I might just not play again up there.
Just end on a good
note. Because I keep finishing second or third. Yes. It's always second or third.
Have you ever won it?
Won it twice, but I was in college and the team.
Was it Burning?
Yeah, but it was also like I won with Burning. I lost in the final with Burning. We won Graftex. But the Graftex team I had, it was Kyle Harrison, Joe Walters, and somebody else. It's like the team was just ridiculous. Like I looked at the picture and I was like, we better have won it at that point. So
the tournament's still great, but like back then it was ridiculous. Everyone would go up. It would be some serious competition.
Yeah, man, they would got good. And like I feel like they bring up pretty good teams, and I like the pace of it at the 35 plus now, where it's like it's good quality, but it's not too fast. It is not too physical. Yeah. And there's not like like I said, I might end up on it.
But sometimes you get the guys who don't move as well and they try to compensate by checking harder.
That part is rough. Tough. That's a rough one. But also, you have to look at a few guys like last year I did it. I got slashed really hard. Like I had like the whole, like I had mesh in the plastic, like cover like the whole outline of somebody's stick. I'm like grabbing a guy and being like, "Hey man, like we got careers.
We all got to go to work Monday.
We got to work tomorrow. Like don't do that, bro."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's like. I mean, it's fun to go up there. It's beautiful up there. Yes, it's fun to be with the guy. We have a bunch of Cuse alum on our team this year. It's going to be a blast.
It'll be fun.
It's not easy playing lacrosse. You feel great after, and you feel great that you can still do it. But it's like it's like a hard workout, right?
It is.
It's like man, it's a grind when you're doing it. I mean, when you're out there, I guess it's fine. But you're also in the back of your head like, don't want to snap an Achilles, don't want to tear an
Don't wanna
ACL,
get
don't
hurt.
want to just roll my ankle, don't want to pull a hammy, don't want to pull a quad.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things,
many
that
things.
just when you're younger, you don't even think about.
Not at all.
This episode of Upstate Impact is brought to you by Renewal by Anderson of Central New York. It's Christmas in July, and for a limited time, you can save 20% off your entire project with no payments until Christmas 2026. And because you're listening to the Upstate Impact Podcast, you'll receive an additional $500 off your entire project when you mention Upstate Impact during your free consultation. If you've been thinking about replacing your windows or doors, now is the perfect time. Schedule your free window and door inspection before July 31st by calling 315-422-3500. Again, that's 315-422-3500. Mention the Upstate Impact Podcast to receive your additional $500 off. Renewal by Anderson of Central New York, locally owned and operated, and proud to support the stories that make Upstate New York great. Think back to when you started lacrosse. You played middle school, did you start? Or a little before?
Man,
Fifth grade?
No, I started in 7th grade.
You started in seventh. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I
like the
thought. I
summer
kind of
of
remember
7th
that.
grade. Yeah.
I mean, today that's late. Even then it was a little late, especially for being initially in the West Tennessee district.
Very late.
Talk about how you caught up. And I have a good idea. I was talking about Shove, and I remember you probably playing like 4 or 5 Shove games in a night. But like lacrosse is an interesting sport because it's not like, soccer or football. Like football, there's guys who have never played a down of football in their life who are athletically gifted enough and coordinated enough to be able to literally step in and play in an NFL game. That would never happen in lacrosse, right?
No.
It's like you got football here, and then you got golf, which is all skill. It's like lacrosse is kind of in the middle. Like you still need a baseline skill of catching and passing. You imagine playing basketball and not being able to catch and pass.
For sure.
That'd be silly. You wouldn't be able to play. So that's where lacrosse is. So there's definitely a skill set there that takes time to learn. Starting in 7th grade, you're a little late to, I wouldn't say that late, but you're a little late to the game.
I was behind. I thought I was behind for sure.
And how did you catch up? I mean, you probably didn't even think about it at the time, you're in 7th grade, but like in hindsight, like it's just good to know, like, how did you get to a point where you're going to Syracuse, which was probably the #1 lacrosse school in the nation, in college?
I'll tell you the backstory of how I actually learned what lacrosse was. So all the kids in my neighborhood had lacrosse sticks, and I didn't know what it was. So, but I never asked them. I only it was like football and basketball were like the things I always like loved to do, and obviously I knew those sports because my brother played them. And then this is at the time where there were no remotes on televisions, so I'd lost mine, so I had to like change the channel up
go up,
the little cable box. So I was changing the channel, and I got to ESPN. I think it was ESPN2, and Princeton is playing Syracuse in the national championship. And it's the game where
what year was that? 03?
I think it's
early 2000s.
Yeah. And it's the year we lose. So Syracuse loses in overtime. BJ Prager scores on a feed from Ryan Boyle. It ends up winning it. That's the first time I ever watched lacrosse. And I watched and said, I don't know what that is. But like as soon as I turned to it, I couldn't stop watching it. And then that was when I started recognizing, oh my God, all the kids in the neighborhood, that's what they're doing, is what I was watching on television. And that's when I kind of like got introduced to lacrosse. To get good at it, once I got a stick, there was a place called Shove Park, which is pretty much like probably a 5-minute walk away from where I grew up. It's in Fairmount.
It's an ice rink.
And it's ice rink. And at the time, they didn't have turf down.
That's right.
They had just straight up cement.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I am going down there. I'd already been signed up to play for the summer ball lacrosse stuff. And I was learning the game that way. But then they would have games scheduled from 4 o'clock. And I think the last game went at 9 at the time. This is when they were like team upon team.
So the peak
it would
of
go,
it,
so it would go younger to older throughout the night. It'd start with like our age group would be the 4 and 5 o'clock games. And then it would go high school. Then usually I would stay around for the college games. That was when I really could see what it looked like when it was fast, like super fast. So it was like the 7 and 8 games. That 9 o'clock game would be pretty fast as well. Well, a lot of times when you got to probably the 2nd week or 3rd week of the summer league, people need subs.
Yeah.
And people don't have, So I'm down
It's
there.
hot as heck in
It's
there.
hot.
No AC. No
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. So I'm down there from we'd end our session with with West Tennessee. It would end around maybe I think it's like noon, and then I'd go home and get some food, and then I'd walk from there down to Shove Park with all my gear from Play It Again Sports, and then anytime somebody needed a sub, regardless of whether I could pass or catch at the time, the best way I could learn it was just simply get on a team, go play on the team. So that's literally, so I just kept, so sometimes I'd get probably 3 or 4 games in a night. So you just start adding that up. I'm getting about 20 games in a week.
Plus the practices
Plus
every morning.
the practices.
So you're getting the skill work in the morning combined with, applying it to a game every night.
Yes.
That's huge.
So I was learning the why of it. I was learning the why in the morning, and then I was getting to apply it in the afternoon.
And what's nice about Shove, it's an indoor ice rink that's converted to just a summer box lacrosse arena in the summer. There's so many more shots, right? You think about an outdoor game. If you're lucky as a midfielder, you get 5 shots in a game.
Very lucky.
6 maybe.
Yeah.
You could get 20 shots
for sure,
because it's just ball is always in play, right? You're dodging against short sticks the whole time, so you're getting a step on guys more often. You're able to take those shots. So that's why I always people say box lacrosse is great for that reason. Even though this isn't like true box lacrosse, this is more just kind of field inside, but it's the same concept applies as far as touches and shots. And there's only 5 guys out there, so the ball's moving, the ball's zipping, in and out of your stick more. So I think that was probably part of it too. It's just higher rep games.
You can make mistakes in that, in that structure without worrying about getting ripped by your coach. So you're allowed to kind of do some trial and error stuff as well. The main thing I got from it was the spacing. So as midfielders, we control literally the middle of the field going to offense and defense. But there's something to be said about when the ball comes off the wall and there's somebody with like a lead pass up the field. You're learning to play with the space without worrying about if you turn the ball over, at least it hits off the glass as opposed to going out of bounds. So I was learning about the spacing part, and that was actually a big part of my game as I got older, was learning the space. But I attribute to
it's a hard thing to teach.
It's hard to teach.
You just gotta figure it out. You gotta play.
Absolutely.
You gotta learn it. I think probably playing other sports too, especially like basketball.
Basketball's another one. Yeah.
It's very similar in that way.
Yeah.
So you're playing, you're getting all these reps in, you getting yourself ready to be obviously an elite lacrosse player. Not that you really even thought about it at the time. I think you were just probably playing because you enjoyed it and it was fun, like all of us. You still played football. You still played basketball.
Yeah.
I know you had aspirations to potentially play football beyond high school. Talk about the balance there of lacrosse and football, what your thoughts were going through high school, and ultimately led you to choose lacrosse, because a lot of people know you as a lacrosse player. Yeah. Obviously, you thrived in college, you thrived post-college playing professional, but I don't think people realize, unless they were around when you were younger, how good of a football player you were. And, I'll share a story of when we played, where, we ended up going to CBA. I was still at West Tennessee, and it was your senior year. I think you guys played at West Tennessee. And, you guys handled us. It wasn't a very close game. And it was frustrating because you guys were up from the start. And I remember I was an outside linebacker. You were running back and safety, I believe, right?
Yes.
And I remember, and you were probably even a better safety than you were a running back, but you're an excellent running back. And I was an outside linebacker. And I remember one play, I was blitzing, and I got in, and I must have beat like the pulling guard.
Yeah.
So I think it was Paulus, right? It was your quarterback. Paulus. He like handed it to you. And I'm like literally this close to you, like right when you touch the ball. Yeah. And all I'm thinking is like, I knew you were quick, so I kind of like gathered myself for a second, and you just side juked towards the line of scrimmage and gained like 3 yards. I'm like, I had him in the backfield for a 4-yard loss. And it was just like, you just made the most athletic move I've ever seen on the football field. And I was just like, that's just obviously an anecdotal story.
Yeah.
But it was just funny. I don't think people realize how good of a football player you were. And I know I'm sure you had plenty of offers. I think you even were thinking about playing football at Syracuse.
Yeah.
But talk about the balance of the two, when you thought you'd play one, when you thought you'd play the other, and ultimately what led to lacrosse.
I actually football's my first love. It really is. I still watch it religiously. Love to go to a few Q's football games just because it's nice to have major college football in your backyard. I'm sure you probably go to at least one game,
Of course, yeah.
per fall. So it was my first love. When my parents transferred me from West Tennessee and moved me to CBA, most people that are on the outside looking in think that that's a football move.
Yeah.
I get
Knowing
it.
that West Chatty was such a good lacrosse school.
sure.
CBA was becoming a great lacrosse
Yeah.
school. They're just a sports school,
Yeah,
private school.
for
But they were
sure.
also a football
Football
powerhouse.
school, so I get it. At that time, Greg Paulus is the Gatorade Player of the Year in 2 sports
Crazy.
at our school, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So he's there. LaVar Abdel goes to Syracuse to play football. Bruce Williams goes to play football. And I think on that team, when I transfer in, I can't play that year. There's at least, I think, 8
Is that your
division.
freshman year?
Sophomore year.
Sophomore, okay.
So there's at least
Oh, you went to West Chatty freshman year.
my freshman
Yes,
year, and then I
okay.
transferred over. But once my parents transferred me there, again, I'm thinking that more than likely I'll be funneled towards playing football only. When I get to start playing football, so they obviously know that I'm there. The exams and all that stuff to get into the school are all done. I get there, and Joe Casamento, who was our head coach at the time, asks me, do I want to play football in college? And ideally, I say yes at the time. But I also say, Coach, I'm pretty good at lacrosse too. I kind of like sprinkle it in there. But those guys usually play one sport. If they play basketball, they just play basketball. I tell them, I'm actually pretty good at lacrosse as well. I'd like to play that as well. That year that I'm not playing, in the fold of learning from these guys, and I get to see what it's like to play at a high level. All these college coaches are coming in every single weekend, obviously to see Greg. And then, LaVar was a really highly rated receiver as well. So I'm meeting Urban Meyer, walks into our building with Florida stuff on. That's how old we are. Comes in with Florida stuff on. Butch Davis comes in. He's at North Carolina Chapel Hill at the time. Shake all their hands. Even Mike Krzyzewski came to the school, shook his hand. They're all coming so I'm learning that obviously making this transferring schools, there's clearly a huge emphasis outside of the academic part is that this is a place you usually go for sports. Football kind of became an accidental thing when it came. They didn't know how good I was. A lot of the eyes were on Greg. Greg graduates, that class graduates. Mike, his brother, is now the quarterback. And I guess my welcome to football moment was when they were coming to see Mike. There was a few schools that were there. It was University of Virginia. It was Chapel Hill. And I believe it was another school. I can't remember the name. I don't know of the other school. They come to watch Mike play West Tennessee. This is up at Alabrandy Stadium where CBA plays. And after the game, they say, well, we're looking at number 15. Who's number 23? So that game, I have over 100 yards. I have 3 touchdowns. I almost brought back and Chris Arberton, my best friend. I get an interception. I try to almost bring it back for a pick 6 on him in the same game. So that was when my information kind of started getting out there to
I was playing that game. Yeah.
It starts getting out to all the schools. So all the schools are looking at Mike. They get in contact with my parents, and then Casamento was really, big on. He's a football guy. So all the coaches that are coming in, football. And then ultimately that was when the offer started coming. And then what made things more confusing, I would say, more irritable, was a few of the guys on the football team played lacrosse. And I had told them, I'll play lacrosse. And they didn't believe me that I was pretty good. So I told them, I think I can help us. That's pretty much how it's at. I think I can help us. So that's
a modest way of putting it.
Yeah, I think I can help. So that next year, we have the season we have. We go to the state title. Unfortunately, we lose to Cold Spring Harbor. And then that was when the football lacrosse thing just started. Everybody just started to start contacting. It was fun. It was, it's nice to be wanted. But at the end of the day, the more and more I think about the football dream, go to a football game and watch the game, I do sometimes regret not at least giving it an entertainment of trying it. I was asked twice when I was at SU to come out to the football team. Chandler Jones, I played against Chandler in high school. We beat his team. He was one of the people who asked. Doug Hogue was my next door room, next door neighbor on South Campus. He didn't know that I was a top 10 recruit in football. So he knocked on the door one day and was like, "Hey man, I was bored. I just saw the rankings. Like, are you the same one that's on the?" I was like, "Yeah."
Spelling's the same. Is that
Yeah,
you?
spelling's like you. And you went to SU. It's like, yeah. But football wise, I don't know what. There's just some things that ended up happening throughout the recruiting process that I kind of regret not seeking more insight as to how to go about the recruiting process. I knew I wanted to play a sport in college. I knew that part. And I love football. But there was just something about how lacrosse just kept, like, more doors kept opening the further and further I got into it. And as you know, we had Empire State games at the time. So you try out for that. You start getting on the recruiting radar. And then as you know,
make that team, you know you're playing D1.
You know
Yeah,
you're playing
like
D1. And it's also like,
and
it's your moments too. So we're at the Empire State games. Galloway commits to Syracuse. I'm on the bus when he commits. I obviously know him from growing up. Him and Joel started becoming friends. Me and Joel are roommates. Me and Amadon started getting close. Ironically, some of these things are starting to roll into it, and it just kind of starts to roll, and the one person commits, and then another person commits, and then, but yeah, the whole time I'm sitting there thinking I'm still gonna play football, and then we went through the tournament, and I just had some really good games, and it just became more irritating because I was just like, I wish that one would have been more definitive that I was better or worse at the other one. So it would have been easier to make a decision on which one I'm a little better in. But it worked out for me. It just kept working out that way.
yeah, it just kind of made sense.
Yeah.
And I understand the recruiting process when we were young. Like, no one knew.
Nah.
I remember just getting all these letters. It's like, do I respond?
That's
like
crazy.
emails.
Yes.
Like, I was kind of like, oh, we'll go to West Jenny. Miss Sarah will talk to a coach.
She'll hook me
It'll
up.
make sense.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
I'm not answering all these things. Like,
For sure.
you know, you're probably getting flooded. And so, so I was like, that was tough. But it all worked out. And it sounds like it just kind of made sense that, like,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
So, your background, we've obviously known each other for a very long time. So what made you not go straight to SU? Did you want to, I'm not going to say like there was a shadow because I know your father obviously played at SU, but like what made you not want to go straight to SU?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at it like that. My dad played football.
Sure.
I was never like, oh, I don't want to follow his footsteps. It was twofold. Part of it was that recruiting process. I just kind of was like, very laissez-faire. Like, I just thought it would happen. Desco called me. He left me a voicemail the first day. I was like, oh, he'll probably reach out again. Like, I just left him on red.
That sounds okay.
I knew him. I knew
That's
Tim.
real.
So I just didn't think anything of it. And part of it too, and you maybe, I don't know if you felt this at all.
Sure.
But like, so many kids I remember in high school be like, oh yeah, we go up to SU to party. Like when they're in it. So now I was like, man, if I'm running into these kids when I'm in college, I was like, that's the last thing I want to do.
That's
like
real.
it almost like I wanted to kind of get away a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, Syracuse ended up filling up. I visited Maryland. All of a sudden, they're filled up. I was like, oh, I didn't realize we could commit. Like, I was just, because I probably didn't show that much interest because I was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
If they really want me. So, obviously, my brother was at Albany.
Yeah.
But Mark Kelly, Kevin Cornell, all these guys were at Albany, Joe Pompo. And so I'm like, oh, we have this crew at Albany that I already know is a good situation. They had cleaner that year. They're having a great years. And they're like on the up and coming. And then actually, Judd Lattimore at North Carolina saw me at Empires, but that was late. And he's like, hey, we got one more midfield spot. So that's where I was kind of leaning.
Yeah.
And I ended up being an academic thing. Like they already used their like, get this kid in through admissions card for a few of them. So I had to get it on my own.
That's real.
And I was, it was great school. I didn't do that great in high school.
Yeah.
So it kind of just ended up being like, oh, all right, Albany's the choice because that's the only one left.
I gotcha.
And, no regrets. I enjoyed playing there. I enjoyed going to school there. I was there for 3 years. I'm just very fortunate that Desco knew who I was and it kind of worked out. And, as much as lacrosse, I enjoyed it there, but there was just things about it. It's just a different program, right? Coming from West Jenny. It was nice to go to Syracuse because, part of it's just playing inside.
That's real.
February, March,
For
like
sure.
being in the dome, being in Manly. But I mean, talking about falling in love with the sport again, it was like a whole new thing for me. Like, at one point I was like, I don't know if I'll ever play lacrosse again, to like, I was looking forward to getting to practice every day.
Yeah.
And I was excited. It was fun. I felt myself getting better. I knew we were good.
Yeah.
And it was just, that's kind of how it worked out. So like, I have no regrets, but that's really why it worked out the way it
Fair
did.
enough. I got you.
And, what I was wondering too is like, you being good at lacrosse in Central New York in 2007.
Yeah.
If you're a top player here, you knew you were a top player in the country.
Yeah, for sure.
Football, being a top player here, I mean, you're competing with every city in the
don't know.
country.
That's
You
real.
just don't know.
That's real.
You got the boys in Texas and
That's-
Florida,
oh,
California,
that's real.
all over the country.
Yes.
Ohio's good football. Connecticut's good football.
Yes.
Like, did that factor in at all? Where you're like, hey, I know if I'm one of the best players around here, I'm going to be one of the best players in the country. Was that any of it?
That's funny. So, it's unique is when I was at CBA, there are always the common names of like the upstate football players that got to the league, right? So like Latavius Murray, who like was around my age, we had the same barber. So when
he used to work out with him at Strength and Motion with Court Parker.
So when Latavius was like in the chair, he'd ask how I did in whatever the football game was, and then I'd do the same thing when I would sit down with the barber for whatever the next game was. So we were in this like friendly competition even then, but we always were referenced to guys from upstate New York that ended up playing in the league. So, Latavius Murray or Dorsey Levens.
Mike Hart.
Yeah, Mike Hart. I was going to say, what's my man? Tavon Branch.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all people from upstate New York. So I guess the point was like at that point was that it's not impossible that you have guys that are signing, on their second or third deals in the league. So they clearly can play at a very high level. Honestly, I went to a Nike football camp. It was in Piscataway, New Jersey, where Rutgers is, and they put you through everything, like everything you would do at a combine for football. You do the 10-yard sprint, the 40. You do the bench press. You do the cone drill, everything, right? And do a pretty good job. And then we do one-on-ones. So like now I'm a safety going against tight ends and whatever. Do halfway decent. Get a scholarship offer from Rutgers, and that's the only school that wanted me to play running back. Everybody else wanted me to play defense, play safety.
Yeah.
Anyway, I go there, and when we're on the way back in the car driving back, and I remember that was the first time football-wise where I second-guessed myself a little bit. Because I just saw guys that were maybe 6 months younger than me, could run a little faster than me, were a little bit stronger than me. And it's very unnerving, but it also gave me something to work towards after that.
It's humbling.
It's very humbling.
It's very good to have that experience.
Yeah,
as much
man.
as it's hard at the time.
Yeah. And so football-wise, I do still think it would have panned out. I don't know if it would have panned out at SU if I played football. I probably would have went somewhere else because some of the places I was getting looked at would have been pretty cool to go to, just from experience. But when I came back from that Nike football camp, Casamento ripped me a new one. And it was like, it kind of started this, we kind of had this weird energy from that point on. He was asking why I went. And I said, I wanted to see where I was at. I wanted to see what it was like to compete against somebody from a different state and see what it was like. Because we had done that in lacrosse. You do the travel circuit during the summertime. You get to play kids from Maryland. You know that's a hotbed. A Long Island team. Yeah. You already know that's a hotbed. So the kid I'm playing against is probably going to be. I'm playing against him at Virginia probably next year.
Yeah.
So you already know. You got a good idea. Football, there's so many big universities. There's so much good talent. It's so much football. I just wanted to see where I was at. But I will say that was the second guessing for me in football. I still would have loved to see where I would have panned out had I just followed the dream and continued with it. But yeah, that was like the one time I actually went out and ventured out with football. And I was like, this is different out here. The football thing is different.
Yeah. So was that a big reason why or part of the reason why it ended up being lacrosse? And
it was a part of the reason.
Yeah.
So me and my mom made a deal. How I even got to SU was a negotiation. So who was the head coach at Chapel Hill before Bresci? They were recruiting me. And I wanted to go to Chapel Hill. Powder blue.
Yeah,
all
everyone
that
did in high
is
school, for sure.
Flyers,
Same thing.
uniforms, all that stuff.
South,
all that. So never been to North Carolina, wasn't familiar with North Carolina. Why not? I was in the middle of like the recruiting where like they can call and all that stuff. They knew that I was a football player. And so a lot of them, when they were offering me, it wouldn't just be like something for football. It would be like, look, you can play lacrosse as well, or be vice versa. We want you for lacrosse, but if you want to walk onto the football team, we'll allow that as well. So Chapel Hill, it's down between Chapel Hill and SU. And we are, I think we're actually at the Empire State Games. Do you remember the name Ed Prevost? The Prevost brothers,
yeah,
right?
Sure.
Up in Watertown.
Yeah, Tyler and I, yeah.
Okay, so ironically, during one of the sectional games, before we actually did the Empire State Games, I knew I made the team at that point. The sectional games, we are, my parents happened to be sitting next to the Prevost family. So like they were on the split of like CBA fans over here and then right there. And they hear the Prevost family, they just kind of start talking, whatever. Who's your son? My dad's like number 23, whatever. And like, yeah, we are actually, after this game, we got to go see our other son. He's got a game tomorrow at the crack of dawn or whatever. We got to leave pretty much from here to get down there. And she's like, where does he go? My mom now is inquiring, where does he go to school? She's like, he's at University of Chapel, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And she's like, oh, wow, that must be amazing. And the mom's like, his mother's like, it's horrible. And she's like, what's
not a hop, skip, jump away.
She's like, in order for us to go see his games on Saturday, she's like, we have to leave work on Friday. We have to have the car already packed. We get in the car. Watertown is an hour north of us, right?
Away,
so they have to get in the car right there. They drive throughout the night. They get a hotel room. They get to the hotel. They sleep. They get up. They go get breakfast. They come to the game, see him before the game, hug, kiss. The game happens. At tailgate, hug, kiss. We get in the car. They got to drive back pretty much all Sunday, right? Because it's like 11 hours from there.
Oh, for
right?
sure. At least.
Drive back, get a little bit of sleep. They back on work on Monday. So this woman tells my mom this. My dad would drive to the moon if he could to come watch me play. My mom hears this. She's like, yeah, so like that's a little too far.
You can do that right here in the dome?
Yeah, she's like.
Just as good lacrosse?
Yes. So at that time I'm thinking, all right, so I still want to go to Chapel Hill. And then some dominoes start to fall. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been my junior year or my senior year, the whole coaching staff gets fired. So they're moving on from whoever that regime was. And then it just ends up happening to where, you know how recruits go. If you recruit, if a coach recruits that player, they're usually going to try to highlight that player. Mm-hmm. You never know where you're on the pecking order of the coaches that are coming in.
Yeah, so a lot of them drop.
Them or stuff like that. So long story short, I said, all right, Mom, I still want to go to Chapel Hill because Joe Bresci was recruiting me when he was at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And so he ends up taking the job. And the deal is, all right, Mom. She's like, my mom never saw me playing, and she only saw me play a few times in high school. My dad saw every game in high school. So I say, here's the deal. She's like, that's too far, whatever the reason. She's like, I don't think, I want you to be happy, whatever, but I think that's too far. My dad obviously is like, do what makes you happy. You've worked so hard, you get to make this decision. I said, here's the deal. I'll stay in Syracuse, but Mom, you have to go to every game. And I think it was like the next day I signed.
Wow.
Next day I signed. She was like, okay. And then if you were to look at the crowd, or every single time you see my parents together, you see my mom right next to my dad. And that was the deal. So that's how I picked that shit.
Yeah. I think my parents had a very similar. It was so nice to be able to just shoot up.
It's right there, bro. It really is.
For half the games, right? And then it's cool because then you get to travel to different colleges, to UVA, to Princeton. Yeah. So they still get the travel aspect because that's fun, right? It's fun to follow your son, go watch him play lacrosse or daughter, right? It's like, it's the same crew of parents. They all become friends, and it's a cool thing. But half of them right here in your backyard,
Yes.
you can't beat it.
Funny thing about that too was when they did drive to like Virginia, I'm sure you're probably getting recruited by some of the same schools. When they're looking at you, you don't usually make your visits. So it was like their first visit was when we'd play at Klockner Stadium, or when we played.
This was an option.
Yes, and then it was when we played at Arlotta Stadium. I think we opened Notre Dame Stadium. Oh, wow. We were the first game ever.
Oh yeah, we played them early in the year. Yeah, I remember that.
And but they drive out to Notre Dame, and I was begging when I went out there, I begged for a tour because we had the nightcap game. So we got to do a college tour of Notre Dame. That was the first time. That was the only time I ever got a Notre Dame, visit per se. And we ended up playing a game that night. So they get to actually see the universities that we said no to, which was fun.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just a fun experience. I always say as much fun as I had, I think my parents also had just as much fun. They didn't even have to play. They're just kind of partying, tailgating, having fun, going to the games. All the parents had a blast. Lacrosse through college and then into pros.
Yeah.
You had that vision. You knew you'd be good. You decided on lacrosse. You knew even at the pro level, even if, when you're younger, you're like, you don't think about it, but it's like, man, what was the salary cap when we were playing pro lacrosse? It's like 16. I think Brable was making $16,000 a year.
Yeah, and it was balling.
Yeah, and he was the top. Yeah. So it's like everyone else is just less than them. And, I think I was getting paid $300 a game.
Yeah.
But still obviously opened up a lot of doors. Talk about just kind of going through college and then also, playing pros and some of the opportunities that it led for you and maybe some of the things, the experiences you had.
I didn't realize how marketable I was until after I played at Cuse. I felt like the missed, I wish I was in NIL world. It would have been so nice.
We were just we weren't at the time of marketing yourself on social media.
Yeah, man.
2010,
10 on that time.
9, you're not really, there's no social media.
There's no socials. I was going to say.
Facebook just started.
I was going to say, and IG was not there.
Yeah.
You just had Twitter.
And Twitter. Yeah, that's right.
Twitter.
I forgot Twitter was around.
The college experience into the pros, I hate to say it, but the most professional version I ever got was in college, right? Because you're doing everything together as a team. You have film, you have your workouts, you have your practices, you have your preparations. Even when you're not on the field, you're still hanging out with each other, right? You're going out to eat, stuff like that. You're going out
to eat in nice restaurants in the city.
You're staying at
downtown Marriott's, a pro team.
Yeah, like a pro team. Everything feels like you're a pro. Again, I know that they're doing a lot more to improve the professional experience.
Oh, it's a lot different today, I think, than it was when we played.
But at the time, the experience was unique because I guess I understand that sometimes you are the baton, sometimes that is passing it on so that somebody else can, quote unquote, benefit from where it used to be. I guess a good example is like the WNBA, where there was a certain way that it looked, and now the way it looks is hopefully like the branding that, professional lacrosse wants to look like soon enough, where they're not going to be sharing a stadium, they'll have their own stadium, or there's not going to be 500 people in the stands, it's going to be, 50,000 people in the stands for a game. It's very hard to see it in that moment, but we were laying the foundations of it. At the time, I didn't understand marketing and how marketable I was at the time until I moved to Charlotte. They had done a lot of marketing for the team. I was a part of the inaugural season with the Charlotte Hounds. And so they had, it was on CPCC, which was right where the skyline of Charlotte, you've been to Charlotte before, but it was this stadium that they wanted to renovate at the time. But
it was a cool stadium. We played Rutgers there in college. Yeah.
It was really cool. They kept certain stones and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they wanted to keep
cool feel.
Yeah. And so the idea was getting another professional team in a place like Charlotte was unfamiliar with lacrosse. The sport was growing in the area. So they wanted to obviously do a lot of that. So when I got traded there, a lot of the marketing, I learned a lot about marketing from my experiences in professional lacrosse. And it just came down to, well, we didn't have agents, right? So we're not really getting paid anything major, but you learn a lot about how it made me look at how football players or basketball players or baseball players, even soccer players are marketed, how they're able to make real good money, honestly, outside of just playing the sport, how they really go about how they find talent, what makes that person marketable, stuff like that. So my experience from Cuse and then going to Rochester that first year was a shell shock, because we were going sometimes and there were 50 people in the stands. And that's so, I'm not even trying to exaggerate.
Oh, I always say that. I'm like, you're staying in like a Red Roof Inn.
You're
Plus,
staying in a Red Roof
there's like
Inn.
no breakfast. You're like, you're on your own. Like, I have to like Uber like half my salary to go get breakfast.
Seriously, you know, and
as opposed to how it was at Syracuse, you know, we just were spoiled in a way.
Yeah, so you're more used to, like I said, I think the college experience was it felt more professional than the actual professionals. But then, you know, when I was in Charlotte, they had certain things that were set up for us. They had, there was like a barbecue place downtown, uptown, excuse me. There was a place in uptown Charlotte that if you were a player, you got like half off. They had a place on the main strip of Tryon where if you needed a haircut, they had special perks because you were an athlete for Charlotte Hounds. There were cool little perks like that. So I learned a lot more about how the players in other sports, how they kind of keep the money trail rolling. But in regards to the sport, like playing the sport itself, I ain't gonna lie, like it felt a little bit more bootleg when I was in the league, just because it wasn't as much put into the product itself.
Yeah.
I do think that now when I watch like a PLL game now, it is night and day. It's amazing to watch. Not only the quality of the player is ridiculous, how easy they make the game look, but they've done a lot more towards marketing the individuals, and now it looks like a more professional thing for me.
And I think it's continuing to go down that path. I think there's a lot of investment. I think there's a lot of interest.
For sure.
But like in hindsight, what advice would you have to someone, especially in today's age, who's coming up, who thinks they're going to be a pretty good athlete? Like, how do you set yourself up to be marketable, to capitalize on any sort of career that you have? You know, when I say that,
I would, part of me kind of says like avoid controversy, but it also kind of depends on.
And also like sometimes you don't say any, you know, publicity is good publicity,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's kind of like not that, depending on what the issue is, I guess, or the thing that you're having a staunch opinion on. Because I do think that, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but, you know, when you are looking to be marketed, when people are going to put their time and effort into you or money into you, they want to look at it and say, this is not going to reflect poorly on us. If, you know, it's not going to blow back in our faces. But I would just tell anybody, any athlete, keep your options open, and also like have your own game plan before somebody approaches you. Because that's the easiest way to get taken advantage of, is if you don't have an idea how you know, of where you want to, where you see yourself in regards to the public eye. If you don't want to be seen as, like I said, I guess a good example would be, Jaylen Brown just got, you know, he just got traded yesterday. So depending on who you're talking to, right, either he's a problem child to you or he's super duper intelligent and somehow that seems threatening. But he also is like the first one to call out media outlets. So it's going to be hard if I'm a media person. It'd be hard to say I want to put X amount of time and energy into a person that's going to criticize the very thing that I make into a profession. So I would just say that you got to have your own idea of what you want to accomplish outside of your sport, and then have some things in your own head that somebody can't pitch to you, that you already have an idea how you would want it to look as well.
Like your own mission statement.
Your own mission statement.
It makes decisions easier.
For sure.
Is this what I want to be doing? Is it what I not want to be doing?
For sure.
It's easier maybe to say that than to do it. But if like, as long as you know, like, yeah, exactly. You know who you are.
Yeah.
You know how you want to be. Even if it goes bad, it's still within the realms of like, this is what I chose.
Yeah.
Then like it is what it is. Like I think you got to kind of have those boundaries, or you're saying yes to everything, or all of a sudden you're in a situation where like, how did I get here? This isn't me.
Yeah. So I could give an example because we're so far behind it at this point. It's a good example. So when I was in college at SU, I even brought up diversity in the game of lacrosse. It was bigger than just like being a person of color, being a black person that's being on the team. It was the fact that like there wasn't a huge, the quantity, like it was not a lot of us. At the time when I was in college, instead of kind of partnering with these two, I was pinned against them by media in so many words. But the Bratton brothers from Long Island, Chamel's one of my very good friends till this day, but I didn't know that we were going to be friends with the way that I was presented him as a person before even saying hello to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
You had all these assumptions.
I had these assumptions being put in my head. I never met him.
Not by you. Yeah,
Not by
the
you,
people.
you know,
Exactly.
right. And then somebody's projection turned in my assumption of that person. And then, mind you, we also go to rival colleges, right? Syracuse, Virginia is one of the biggest rivalries.
Number one, number two for
Number
most of the
one,
time you guys were at Syracuse.
Yeah, we're at
in
Syracuse,
Virginia.
right? So you have at SU, we have a indigenous player and a black player are starting midfielders at Syracuse that has a long lineage of, players of color that have been given a chance. Roy Simi, the GOAT for me in regards to always opening that door, versus these two black twins at the University of Virginia, Commonwealth and all that. So the idea was like we had never gotten to each other until 2010 when our seasons were over and we played on a Maverick select team up at Vail. It's the first time I actually met Chamel in person. Hey man, I'm Jovan. Hey, I'm Chamel. And I realized after that, I said, wow, so much had been said about him. I like met him and I was like, none of this is true. None of what, this presumed, whatever people thought, this projection of what they thought of him was true. And so from that point on, right after I graduated from SU, I get a part of U.S. Lacrosse and the diversity and inclusion task force to try to not only start the game of lacrosse in, lower poverty level areas, to not only introduce the sport, but try to get more kids of color to be interested in the sport outside of just being introduced to it. Because it's one thing to give a kid a lacrosse stick, is another one for them to be using it at 17 and 18 when it comes time to get recruited.
Well, we also talked about earlier, it's not a sport you can just pick up and play and just go play in the game. It takes time to develop the skill, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating for kids. We used to go into elementary schools to try to grow the game when I was in Texas, and I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and try to teach them how to pass and catch because they're going to be like, this stinks. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I would just have them get ground balls. I'd blast music. They're young, have them dance. I just want them to associate lacrosse with fun.
Yes.
So they just have a stick in their hand more. And then maybe they'll sign up for a whole season because then they'll actually have some time to develop some skill.
Right. So like branding wise, I knew from that point on, like once I met Chamel, for example, then I knew that, well, it's bigger than us not knowing who each other was. It was like at the time we had 3 All-American midfielders at the same time in college, but the way it was perceived or the way it was presented was we were rivals, as opposed to maybe we should have used it that would have been a great lightning rod for us to use to diversify the game, or just start the conversation as to why you're not seeing more of the numbers. When I was on that task force for 3 years, I would also be on panels as well. It was kind of the repeat of the conversation of there's not a kid that I have ever met that has not watched the game or put a stick in their hands and them not be interested in it. It's more or less maintaining the interest, and it's also like giving them the avenues as to
the opportunity to
play after you get introduced to it. The problem is now you and I live in the club world now, so it's hard to tell a kid, hey man, you usually get most of your looks now is when you're playing on a travel team. That's usually when you get, when college coaches are out and about, that's when they're watching the talent. It's hard to now pitch that when usually you're conducive to just your high school team. And then if you're not doing anything during summer, they're obviously going to pick the people that they're seeing.
You're falling behind.
You're falling behind.
You're not playing.
You're not, and you're also, this goes back to, are we playing elite talent? I could tell you, I remember playing against guys where, like I said, I saw them a few years later when we got to college because I was like, yeah, I see it. They were like, he's the number one attackman in the country. He's the number one defenseman in the country. I got to play against those guys when I was in high school. So I was like, not shocked when those guys went on to college and were the players that they were. I got to see them beforehand. So, but my branding in that regard was just always about opening the doors and at least not just having the conversation, but trying to implement ideas as to how we can keep the ball rolling so that there are more Jovan Miller stories that are introduced to the game, fall in love with the game, stay in the game, and then go somewhere big and play in college.
How do we keep that rolling? I mean, your position now, Dean of Students at Syracuse City School District. I mean, I'm sure you're around players who would love to be a part of the sport, but just maybe don't have the opportunities. And honestly, here they might have more than anywhere across the country where lacrosse isn't as big. I mean, fortunately, we're in somewhat of a hotbed here in Syracuse. But like, what are things that can be done to just give more opportunities to keep not only just here's a stick, oh, we have a couple college players come and show you it and then leave and then you never touch it again. Like, how do you make it consistent? Because ultimately, I think a club, we're talking about, we're living in a club world, and it's like, getting club coaches, you know, I ran a club in Austin, Texas, and it was like, you're pulling these coaches who are working all week, and it's like, all right, how am I going to make it worth their time? You got to pay them. Right? And then it's like, all right, so it's going to cost money. Plus, it's all the time that we have to do it.
For sure.
So we got to charge enough. So it ends up being not cheap. You know, I mean, and I think some clubs price gouge, don't get me wrong, but like, we weren't the most expensive, but we had to charge, you know, we weren't like a funded program. Like it was all pay to play for our club. And we never turned anyone down. You know, we're fortunate. We're in Austin, Texas. You know, there was money. A lot of people were fine paying it.
Sure.
We would work. We'd do sibling discounts. And if someone came to us who was a good, you know, who wanted to play and we liked it, like, absolutely, we'll figure it out. Like one guy, his kids didn't play or didn't pay, but he ran like a small clothing store. He's like, come in, you know, I'll give you some shirts and stuff. Like, done.
For sure.
You know, like, it's like, now I don't have to buy it. So like, we always found ways, but like, how do you kind of bridge that gap? You know, outside of like, hey, everyone should just be volunteering their time, because like, of course, like that would be an ideal world, but like people have lives, people have their own families, people, you know, it's like, you know, it's got to be worth it for the people getting involved, but also like, you know, I'm not saying they have to make a ton of money, but like it's got to get them there to actually coach the kids, to get them in a situation where they can thrive in the sport.
I think you have to address the elephant first. It's hard for me to have a conversation with any person that is in a club sport, whether that be, I don't know, club soccer or, you know, in our case, club lacrosse. You gotta like address the elephant. The elephant in our sport is it costs $200 for a helmet alone. And that's not even, by the way, that's not even a good
came
one.
Out with a head that's $150 for the head unstrung.
Just the head.
You got to string it for $50. You got to shaft for $200. It's like,
so you gotta, any start of anything, you gotta be able to just address the elephant first. If you're not gonna address the elephant of you're pricing out X amount of people already, and then if you're telling me that it costs that much just to get suited for the sport, we're not even talking about how much it costs to get involved in a youth program. And even if that one is, let's just say that one is free of charge, at some point it's going to have to cost something, because that's just the world we're living in when it comes to the club system. You got to address the elephant. The sport's too expensive. It's not too expensive. It's very expensive. And there are a lot of people that aren't allowed to, that feel like they're allowed to even be in that space if they can't afford to be there. So that's a start right there of, if you simply cannot afford it financially, you're already going to be out the way already.
You already decided you're not going to be a part of it.
Already.
Yeah. Even if there is a way to do it, you just see what the price tag is.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? We're wasting our time.
Yeah. So when a student was to ask me about the journey of lacrosse, I was like, if it wasn't for playing against sports, I wouldn't have been able to play, because at the time, this is at the time where, if you remember this, when the CPX had just came out, that helmet. Okay. When you could customize the helmet.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. We weren't. My dad was in education forever. We ain't got it like that. And it was at the time where, the Cryptolite or the Warrior Cryptolite, if you didn't have a Crypto
was a
Pro
fresh- yeah.
or Cryptolite or something like that,
All throwbacks.
if you didn't have those things, then you were kind of behind the eight ball.
As much as it didn't matter.
As much as it
But as
didn't.
a kid, it did.
But it did, right? It'd be like you having some Travis Scott sneakers, right? Modern day. If you're not with the program or whatever, if you can't address the elephant, you got to say first, it's too expensive. It's very expensive for people to not only start playing the sport, but to maintain staying in the sport. That's a start. Now, as far as club programs and such, affordable prices, that's another thing. Again, some price gouge, I agree, 1,000%. Then they guilt trip you into every single season, summer, winter, fall.
Yeah.
He's got to try out for the winter team in fall. But the winter season is the winter season.
Well, you got to do the spring to supplement your height.
supplement.
And it's like, if you're not doing this stuff, you're falling behind.
Right. So
Or is how it's pitched.
Right. So outside of just the idea of just how much it costs to get started playing the sport, you also got to look at it as from the club system is what's your intent? Because at the end of the day, if your intent is to teach the game of lacrosse, you can do that without price gouging as well. I understand that this is a business, but you have to address the fact that it's a business.
Yeah.
I would rather people just say, you know what? I have this gift. I played here. This is my way of giving back. And you go from there. I think at least it's honest. It comes from a very honest place. But then you go to a tournament and you watch how the coaches yell at the kids. And you sit there and tell me, is this about your ego or is this about teaching the game? So we have to address the elephants. If you address the elephants, it's a good place to start. And then I think that you can now have a conversation about outside of people being, like, for example, the great examples of Harlem lacrosse or something like that, where you want those kids to not just be in the program. Now you want them to actually aspire to play it in college.
It's funny you bring up the coaches because it's crazy.
Coaches are
watching
crazy.
some of them.
It's crazy, man.
It's exactly like, are they living vicariously through their team? Like it's a reflection of them.
Yes, absolutely.
You can get blown out, but you could tell if a team's well coached, even if they're not on the
sure.
same calibers or talent. So like, who cares? But also, we always, when I was running a club, it was like, everyone's paying. What is the point of club? It's to get you better, to put you whether a better position in high school to play your high school team or to go to college and play.
Sure.
So it's just about getting better. Sure, you want to win. It makes it a little more fun while you're there. But like, I'm not going to bench a kid who's paying the same amount who made the team. Like, yeah, maybe with a minute left or tie game, we'll try to put in the stronger players. But other than that, everyone's playing.
I'm big
because
on
it's all matter. If you get to high school, they don't even care. They don't count the games. They don't keep score half the time. It's just coaches watching these players play.
That's it.
So like, no one's going to remember that 5th grade, 6th grade championship. Why is that so important?
I think that we're in a world now where the clubs are more important than the high school you went to. I remember at the time, if you told me that a kid went to, I'll go to the island. If you told me a kid went to like Ward Melville and he's on my team, like he can play.
Yeah, he was around good players.
He's around good players. Like if a kid was from West Islip, you'd be like, okay, I got an idea just based on the caliber of player that comes out of there that they can really play. That's not the case now. We've now empowered the club in a way that high school coaches used to be. So now if the kid does not play for an Orange Crush or something, if they play for a lesser, a true team, not to disrespect true, but
throwing out team names.
If you're throwing out team names for the sake of it, somebody already has this idea that this one is not as strong as this one. Is he only this good because he's playing for this club as opposed to playing for a stronger club? They already have this idea. So you've given a lot of power to the club in a way that the high schools are no longer able to have that power. And by power, I mean the influence of getting your players to college to play. So I do think that there's a lot of that going on now with the athlete, to be honest, because now they're looking at their club coach and they're looking at these parents, and the parents are blaming the coach, and the coach now has an invisible gun to their head that pretty much says, if I don't win this, then
my best players are going to go play for that club.
they're going to leave. Or they say, the other part is, I'm going to start parlaying these club programs into a head coaching job in college, where they parlay it into something bigger than that. So I do think that you got to address the elephant. You have to look at it from the inside out, and you can't keep shying away from the fact that right now, that's the world you're in. It's very uncomfortable, but it's the world you're in that right now there's just a huge emphasis on pockets, on the pockets, and profitable. And so if you can't, like I said, I would love to be in a world where, it's been amazing to be on this side of retirement, of how many players or players of color that, I've had my name dropped a number of times on national championship games, and Syracuse wasn't even there. Just being there and listening. Whoa. And I think it was like a few years ago, I was watching a game, and then Isaiah Davis Allen's favorite player growing up was Jovan Miller. I'm sitting there watching the game, wasn't expecting that, but a name drop. You just get more.
Cool.
It's amazing. It's very humbling, but you get more stories like that when they're able to see more of you playing. Yeah. So I do think you got to address the elephant. If you start there, I do think that it'll start to change a little bit. I also think that the coaches got to stop taking themselves so serious. And I do think that you'll get a really good program out of that as well, because the kids will match the energy of the coach, and then the parents will be more mellow, and then it'll be easier to work with college coaches.
Focus it back to the players.
Not
the profit.
For sure.
Not your ego.
For sure. Absolutely.
Jovan, appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely.
That was awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great talking.
Appreciate you.